My name is Denis Janz. I teach in the Department of Religious Studies here at Loyola University in New Orleans. And my field is the history of Christianity, and I've been teaching here for over 30 years. That makes me one of the senior old-timers here at Loyola. But now I'm teaching the freshman course, the first-year seminar, and that's what we're here to talk about. This course is unlike any other course that I teach in this way. The other courses I teach, I have vast, lengthy preparation. I'm an expert in these subjects, and at least people think I am. I have a PhD in these subjects, and I write books on these topics, and so on and so forth. The difference here with this course is that I'm not really technically an expert on any of it. I choose to teach this because I'm interested in the subject matter, but my academic work, my scholarly credentials are not in this area. And so it's very different in that sense. I'm very interested in this subject. I have a lifelong interest in it. I have a tiny bit of experience with it. I have read more than my students have, but I still can't say that I'm an expert in this. And that puts me more on the level of the students than any other course I teach. And really, one of the key differences is that I regard this as kind of cooperative learning between me and my freshmen in this course. So they get to go into a classroom, and I get to go into a classroom with a very different age group. They're a very big age differential, and I learn with them to a large extent. And that makes it interesting for me and for them, I think. The subject matter of the course, the title of the course is The Pity of War. That's a title that was stolen from a recent book by someone who was an expert on World War I, Niall Ferguson. But it really describes what we want to talk about in this course. It's a course on war. Technically, it's on the phenomenology of war, but that only means that we take up various topics and we address ourselves to some of the larger questions about war. We are not so interested in the history of warfare in the West or anything like this, although that is part of it. We are more interested in the larger questions. The questions such as, why is it that human beings ever since, as long as there has been a human race, there has been warfare? Why is it that it seems to always escalate and we get better and better at these orgies of mass killing? Why do we keep doing this? Why have we never in all these centuries found a better way to resolve our differences? And so on and so on. Many people would say these are unanswerable questions. It is simply a waste of time to reflect on these. But in the academic world, we reflect on unanswerable questions. We think it's important. We think that they may not be totally unanswerable, and it is actually very important for human beings to reflect on these kinds of questions. And that's what we do in this course. Of course, there are no easy answers to these questions. If you come up with an easy answer that fits onto a bumper sticker, we reject that answer. These are hugely complex issues, and we want to respect the complexity of these issues in our discussion of them. And so we just talk about them slowly and carefully and step by step. But certainly we want to reject the cliches that would fit on the bumper stickers when it comes to these huge questions of why human beings do these things. Are they innately violent? Is there an innate resistance to killing? Is it a male thing? What is it about human beings that they keep doing this to each other? Well, first of all, they choose this course, and that means that we can presuppose some kind of interest in the subject matter, and that they share with me. There are differences for the students. For one thing, they may be put into, let's say, a math course, for instance, and in which they have no real strong opinions. But when it comes to a course on war, of course, everyone comes with their own opinions on this whole range of questions that we are going to talk about. Everyone has an opinion on war. And everyone's opinion on war, including mine, we get to express our opinions on war, and we should respect everyone's opinions on war. But what we do begin to do is examine these opinions. We begin to ask ourselves, so I have believed this X about war for my whole life. Does it make sense? We begin to ask those kinds of questions. And we ask them in a respectful way. We don't want to trash other people's opinions just so that to show a kind of superiority or something. But we do want to each ask whether our opinions, that were long-held opinions, fervently held opinions, whether they actually make sense or whether we need to maybe in some way revise our opinions. And that's maybe different. I don't think many people come to a math course, for instance, with strong opinions one way or another about something. In this course, everyone comes with strong opinions. And we respect that. We deal with that. We try in this course to speak very, very carefully without insulting other people, without trashing other people's opinions, but really honestly asking, what really makes the most sense here? And we do that slowly and patiently and carefully in this course. I think that makes it different. Critical thinking is a major thing that we try to model in this course, that I try to model in this course and try to teach. Most of us, it's almost a natural human thing when we have a controversial opinion and a difficult question, one of these so-called unanswerable questions, to fall back on cliches. That is almost always what human beings do. We discuss it and we think our way into the subject, and then we can't go any farther, and then we fall back and sum it all up with some cliche. That's what we don't want to do. We want to leave the question open, because when you sum it up with a cliche, you close it off. And almost always, whether you're writing or you're speaking, when you end with a cliche, it almost always means that you haven't thought hard enough about the topic. And so we want to think hard about these topics. That means we want to think patiently and slowly, and even if we don't have easy bumper sticker answers, we want to follow our critical reason where it leads us. We listen to alternative opinions constantly in every class, on every one of these controversial topics that we speak about. We listen to contrary opinions. Some express this opinion, some that opinion. And we ask always, what are the reasons? And then we practice this. We make up our minds not on the basis of who says what, but on the basis of the best reasons. So I don't agree with so-and-so because so-and-so says it, and I don't want students to agree with me because I say it and I'm the professor. I don't want that. That is an argument from authority. We want students to say, okay, so you think this. What are your reasons for thinking that? And then we all listen to the reasons carefully. And then we make up our minds what is true on the basis of the best reasons. That is simply the intellectual life, the way it should be pursued, the way we cultivate this thing called critical reason. And it can be a conversation. Of course, as I said before, I'm not an expert, even though I've read more about this than they have, and I have a tiny bit of experience. I'm still not an expert, and therefore we're not equal. The students and the professor are not equal in this case, but we're more equal. It's not an expert speaking to people who know nothing. All of us have an opinion. All of us know something about the history of warfare and this phenomenon of warfare, and we all have an opinion to express. And success in this course is gauged in this way. If you change your mind, if you end the course and you think differently from when you began the course, then the course has been a success. If you think exactly the same when you're finished as when you start, then it's not that you have failed, it's that the course has failed. That's the way I approach this. The course has failed if you have not changed your mind about anything. If your opinion has not been deepened and enriched and altered and maybe even transformed. That doesn't mean you have to begin to think the way I think about these things. It only means that somehow this course has had an impact on you. You have developed a more reasoned, a more mature, a more reflective position on these very, very important subjects. That's success in this course. I think the point of first year experience, as far as I understand it, is to introduce students to the life of the mind, to the intellectual life, to the world of academia. And of course, we all know that this world doesn't function so well sometimes. We want to show them in this course maybe the way it should function. That is, it is critical inquiry into very important human subjects that are maybe crucial for the future of humanity. A critical inquiry in which we respect each other, we value each other, and we try to deepen our understanding of these issues. That is, I think, what we try to do. And so, for instance, and it really differentiates the university, the intellectual life as it's cultivated in a university from every other kind of discussion, whether it's a discussion that takes place on a street corner or in a bar or at your dinner table. One difference is, or on talk radio, for instance, these are all discussions of similar kinds of issues, but they're different. One difference is that in the intellectual, in the academic world, when we hear an opinion we disagree with, we don't just start shouting. That's talk radio. That's what we want to be, differentiate ourselves from that style. We don't do that. We hear an opinion, we disagree, and we try to formulate why we disagree. And then we just sit there quietly until our turn comes. And then we try to say in a cool, rational way what the reasons are, why we disagree with this opinion. That's university life. You don't hear that on talk radio. You don't hear that on talk television. You don't hear that in a barroom discussion, or you don't hear that at many a dinner table, but that's university life, and that's what we try to cultivate. And so we really practice hard. These are heated emotional issues. Many of them are just loaded emotionally, and so we have to really practice. We have to work at this. We have to say, no, you don't have the floor, and it's not your turn to speak. So-and-so is still speaking, and we, the rest of us, all have to listen till she's finished, and then comes your turn, right? Your turn to say why you disagree and what the reasons are. So it's really is different from the dominant culture, the wider culture, popular culture, the culture outside the university. This is really different here, what we do here. And of course, this is ideal at its best. Sometimes university debates do degenerate into shouting matches, but ideally they shouldn't, right? And usually when they degenerate into shouting matches, then all learning is over. So we try to model this and practice this, the university style of discourse, which is much more respectful and in many ways much more humble. We have to come with a spirit of humility. I don't know everything about this, and your opinion may be enlightening for me, and I have to listen. I don't just have to start I can't just yell when I disagree. I have to really sincerely listen. And when I come with that spirit of humility, then there is a chance of learning and a chance of progress for me or for my students. So that's a short summary of the kind of thing we try to do. Yes, there's a seminar for a semester-long seminar for first-year experienced teachers, and basically it is very helpful, I think, especially for those who haven't taught freshmen for a long time. It's very helpful, and it's also helpful because there's a big sharing of ideas among these professors too. There too, professors have to listen to each other, and one says, I do this in my course, and this works, and another one says, I do X in my course, and this doesn't work, and that's helpful to hear that. Whether we disagree or agree, that's another thing, but it's very helpful to hear all that and in preparing for this kind of thing. Freshmen, when I started teaching 32 years ago, freshmen were different than freshmen are today, and it's important for me to understand that, to understand where freshmen are coming from. In some ways, they are more educated better educated than they were 32 years ago, in some ways less. I have to understand something about that in order to do my job effectively. This is my first time I did this first-year experience, and I chose a topic that was of great interest to me, long-term interest that I've read about and so on. And so it was an opportunity really for me to do this, and it's been a wonderful opportunity. I feel it's very rewarding to me in some ways because of what I said before, that it is a kind of a cooperative learning experience, and students get to see me learning about a subject that I certainly am not an expert on. That means that in class something will come up and we'll all say, well, what about that? And someone then has to say, well, I don't know anything about that, but I'll find out for next time. And sometimes I say that, and sometimes I ask a student to do this. You see, so we have then a little report next time on our research, and the students get to see, and I come to class and I say, well, you know, what I've been reading lately is this book. And this is what this is about, and what do you think about this? And I really am torn. I'm not sure I agree or disagree, and so on and so forth. This is a complicated book, and so on. And so I bring my current study to class. They can see me in the process of learning about something, and I think they can also see me in the process of sometimes changing my opinions about things. And that's a human thing to do. If we're open to learning, then we will be changing our opinions. I did have great teachers. Especially in my undergraduate years, I was a student. I grew up in Canada, and in my undergraduate years, I had some fabulous teachers, and also in graduate school, I did as well. And then I came to Loyola, and I learned from scratch how to teach and how to present material and how to connect with students and so on. And I think even 32 years later, I'm still learning every single year, every time around. Every time I teach freshmen, I learn a lot about how to go about this. This is, I think, the subject that, you know, there is no easy answer to this. There is no one way to do anything when it comes to teaching at the university level. I think great teachers my great teachers have come with a sense of humility. There is a certain kind of university professor who plays the role of the walking encyclopedia. And that is not so helpful to me, I find. You know, there are many brilliant people around. There are many people with high IQs that can memorize encyclopedic lists of facts and so on, and they can show off, and it's very impressive. But that is that doesn't go very far. For me, infinitely preferable is the person who comes and he studied or she has studied for a lifetime, and they come with a great sense of humility. That means that your opinion, you have not studied this for a lifetime, they have, and your opinion still matters, because it could be that your opinion will be revelatory for them. It could be. It's not likely, but they're open to the possibility of learning something from you who have never studied this subject before. To me, that is a sign of a good teacher. The openness to the possibility that every human being might have an insight that you've never actually thought about, and that might be worth thinking about. This, to me, is one sign of the kind of teacher I liked and the kind of teacher I want to be. I think that when that to approach a subject with a sense of humility is to say, I don't know everything about this, and I have a certain opinion, but you know, I am open to changing my mind about this. I don't know everything about this. I haven't heard the final word spoken on this. And it could be that I need to revise my opinion. That person is open to learning. Much can be done with that person. The person who comes and says, well, I learned the truth in 6th grade, and that is the truth for all time, and I will never change my mind about any of that, no matter what anyone says. This person is not open to learning anything, and there's very little we can do for this person in the university. To tell the truth, I don't hear from the ones who didn't enjoy the experience of being in my class. I hear from the ones who did enjoy the experience, and very often I run into them in the street or something, and years later, and I don't remember their name that well, and they look vaguely familiar, and I'm a little embarrassed that I don't remember their names, but I have hundreds of new names to learn every year. But it's very gratifying to hear them say, you know, I love that course, and when you talked about such and such, that was so, I'll never forget it. That is a very rewarding kind of ego trip for teachers. What else? This course on war, I would say, is maybe different from many other courses because of the subject matter. It is a very grim kind of subject matter. We talk about mass killing for a whole semester, and we talk about war crimes and atrocities and genocide, and I mean, these are not happy topics. And so we have to try really hard to keep our balance in this course. We don't want to get mired down we don't want to get hopelessly depressed in this course. We don't want to get mired down, but we do want to face the reality, right? And so it is a balancing act. Then too, we have to keep our balance in this sense. There are many, many forces in the wider culture that we live in that would like to push us in this direction or this direction. There are some people who glorify war, and there are some people who are absolutely opposed to any kind of war under any circumstances. And every side pushes us. Every side would like to talk us into their point of view and so on. And so we have to be very, very careful to keep our balance, to not let these wider cultural forces intimidate us, but rather to think through carefully these alternative opinions and try to arrive at a balanced judgment. That, I think, is a sign of maturity, and it's one way in which this course is different. I have many other interests, but for the time being, this is a major interest for me, perhaps because it's such an immediate experience. So many people we know are in war situations and so on, and I'm very concerned now about issues like post-traumatic stress disorder and so on. After these wars will be over, when we hope they will be over, then this issue will be huge, and it's already a huge issue. And so I think I have not come to nearly to the end of what I want to understand about war. So I'll keep doing this for some time. I mean, we all know that there's such a thing as religious war and the Crusades, but we also know that there are certain forms of religion that teach hatred and that foster warfare. And we have to acknowledge this if we want to be honest, and all serious religious people do acknowledge that. That is one side of religion, it is. But it's not the whole story. The other thing about religion that fascinates me and that we talk about in this course is this persistent dream, this eternal dream that is dreamt by all the major Western religions, Christianity and Judaism and Islam. And that is the dream of a future world in which there will be no war. Is that an empty dream? Or does that dream have some power? And why is it so persistent? It has been there since the beginning. In Judaism, it has been there for about 2,500 years. In Christianity, for the entire life of this religion. In Islam as well. This dream of a future world in which will be free of war. Why is that such a persistent dream? And is it an empty dream? Or is it a dream that has a certain power to influence us, and so on? That is the religious question, and that is an important question for me. If it's simply an empty fantasy, then we can discard it and we can go on fighting for the rest of the human history. But if it's not an empty dream, then maybe we need to think again. And there are many people, religious people, who do not think it's an empty dream. It is part of their religious belief that there will be a future somewhere, somehow, someday, even though none of us can foresee how this will work, in which there will be a world without war. Who knows? It's very difficult to say because, there are all kinds of adherents of these different religions that advocate war and that promote war and so on and so forth, but then there are all those who do not. And so you have all types within these various religions, and you have the pacifists and you have the super aggressive warmongers in every one of these religions. And to say that one dominates, perhaps today in certain versions of Christianity, the pacifists dominate. But I hate to make a generalization, about this at this stage. What I do want to emphasize, though, is that this has been a constant in these religions, this dream of a future world in which there will be no war. And if there ever was an attractive dream, that would be it.